Welcome to the League of Women Voters Zooming with the Alderman interview series. My name is Ilona Vaishnis. The League of Women Voters was founded more than 100 years ago in Chicago. The League is now active in 50 states, so we're a wide network. The League started out as an organization to help women of all political persuasions to become participating citizens for when they would get the vote. Now the League is for all Americans, and men have been League members since 1974. The League neither supports nor opposes political candidates. What it does is work to increase understanding of major public issues and how we govern ourselves. And one example of that is, of course, the Zooming with the Alderman interview series, where we make possible for the public to watch their elected representatives who serve on the Chicago City Council. And the council sets the policies and ordinances that govern us in Chicago. Today, our guest is Alderman Tom Tunney of the 44th Ward. Welcome, Alder Tunney. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. This Zoom session is being recorded, and we have provided the questions to Alder Tunney ahead of time. Let us start by looking at the map of all Chicago wards. Currently, there are 50 wards. So let's take a look at that. And then let us zero in on Ward 44, which Alder Tunney represents. The wards have about 50 residents in each. That probably is also true of the 44th Ward. What neighborhoods does your ward include, Alder Tunney?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and to those listening to the video, welcome to the 44th Ward and the Lakeview community. To answer your question, Ilona, it is one community. We reside completely in the Lakeview neighborhood community. So we have the lake on the east, Ashland on the west, Diversey on the south, and primarily Wrigley Field on the north. And just to correct one of your statements, each ward is 50,000, not you. I think you said 50.
Well, yes, thank you. I stand.
It's actually, it's closer to 53,000. And that's based on population of Chicago being approximately 2.7 million, divided by 50. Each ward is the same number of residents, but they vary differently in size and obviously scope. Mm-hmm.
The 44th Ward is mostly what, residential, commercial, industrial?
I would say our industry in the 44th Ward is primarily healthcare and hospitality. Obviously, we have Wrigley Field, we have entertainment districts, that being primarily North Halsted Street, which is affectionately known as Boys Town. And of course, we have Wrigley Field with its own aura and excitement. And then we have obviously two major hospitals, Illinois Masonic and Ascension. Now it's called Ascension, but primarily it's St. Joseph Hospital. Again, mostly residential. We have vibrant commercial retail corridors, and we have our entertainment districts primarily on Halsted and Clark Street. I'm sorry, yes, Halsted and Clark. Mm-hmm.
What are the main issues that concern the residents in your ward?
Well, first of all, I think it's one of the most desirable and exciting places to live in the city, as does every alderman, maybe for their community. But that being said, we have urban issues. Obviously, we have public safety is first and foremost on everyone's mind, especially in 2022. We have issues of affordability. we're a lakefront community. We have the greatest lakefront in the world, as far as I'm concerned, is a place to, bring your family and entertain, so to speak. I think if one wanted to be overly inquisitive or critical, it's probably not as diverse as other areas. It's mostly, I think we're about 90% white, mostly well-educated and upper income. I've really made an effort to try to bring more affordability to the neighborhood, especially with some of our projects that we may talk about during this half hour. I've been alderman now for almost 20 years, but I've been a resident of Lakeview for 42 years. And I've owned and operated a fairly well-known business, Ansaver Restaurants, which originated on Belmont Avenue in probably the 1930s. So I came on board in 1980 as the owner of Ansathers, and then expanded that concept to a number of neighborhoods. And about 20, I was active literally in the local chambers of commerce. We did a lot of work with the senior community, the LGBT community, the AIDS impacted community. So I've had a busy time owning a business, being involved with the community, and now they're elected representatives. So I'm excited, still excited after all these years.
All right. So you joined the city council, the Chicago City Council, quite a few elections ago. Now, what made you decide to run for re-election in 2019?
Well, first of all, I never thought of myself as a lifelong politician. I started my first election, I think I was 46. And to me, I look back and it was kind of a midlife crisis. Like, I wanted to do public service. I was not ambitious about being an elected official, but I thought, and I still do, that I had the background to be able to manage the ward and the issues of our community better than anyone else I saw in the day. And I still think the same way today. But again, I want to say that there's a lot of work. Being an alderman is, in my opinion, is being like a mayor of a small town. So you're responsible for everything. That obviously we pass a city budget, but we're responsible for safety, schools, recreation, green space, garbage, rodent control. It's really like, in my opinion, a mayor of a small town. And that part of it, since I have an executive background, that part of it excites me to see change, to see investment, to be able to have an everyday difference in people's lives. I think, yes, we do make legislation, but being in Springfield or Washington was never really a real desire. Now, why am I still in it is really what your question is, as far as running in 2019. I still enjoy my work. I've also been in a leadership role now on city council. And I'm learning, I'm continuing to learn. And if you don't continue to learn or don't feel, like you get up out of bed every day and excited to go to work, then you need a different job. So again, I never thought I'd be doing it this long. I do like the job. I do like the difference we can make in people's lives locally. It's a very, I would say, immediate response kind of job. It almost reminds me of being in the restaurant. People, when you serve somebody and they tell you how they feel as they leave your business, it's very similar, in my opinion, the service level of an alderman, because you interface with people every day. You're trying to make everybody as happy as they can be and satisfied, and you should be a good listener. What can we do? What can we do better? Even though we are, I think, in a very successful neighborhood, we can always do better. So, I don't know. I'm still having fun. So I'll just answer it that way. Mm-hmm.
So you still have your business, right?
Correct.
And And you are the Chicago's vice mayor since 2019, and you also chair the Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards Committee, and you're also on the recently created special committee on the Chicago Casino.
All correct. Mhm.
All correct. So there's a lot of responsibilities, and you somehow managed to juggle them all. So tell us about what dovetails and what really pulls you apart in three different directions. Four, if we mention your business.
Yeah. Well, let me say this for the benefit of your listeners. An alderman technically is a part-time job. I think with full-time responsibilities. But that being said, I devote my weekdays entirely to public service. So I get a bite to eat in the restaurant, and I've also changed my hours in the restaurant. I gave up my liquor license to do the job. It was state requirement. And then we've downsized our hours only to open for breakfast and lunch. So I've made some changes with my business operation, basically gave my employees a lot more responsibility. That being said, this is another reason why experience sometimes does matter. Being on the council for as long, you kind of get an idea of how to obviously motivate, how to persuade, how to not act like a freshman, so to speak, and learn how to pick your battles. So with this administration, and I've been a chairperson of various committees over the years, but I am one of the senior persons on the council, and you're elected by your peers, right, for these chairmanship positions. The mayor might recommend, but you're obviously we're ratified by the majority of city council. One of the things that I think Mayor Lightfoot saw me as chair of zoning is that I have developed a master plan for our neighborhood when I first took office in a proactive way about how we vision moving Lakeview forward, and set out a very comprehensive plan. It's on our 44th Ward website, but it did take a proactive look at planning. And rather than saying, oh, we don't want this, or we don't want this, it's like, what do you see your community 10 years from now? And we literally did audit of every parcel of property in our neighborhood, what was on it, or what potentially could be on it, both use and density. And then we changed some zoning to be more conforming with what's actually on the property. And so that a lot of other alderpersons have asked me of how we did this. So I think from that perspective, zoning chair was a kind of a good fit for me. The title of vice mayor is more ceremonial. I mean, God forbid if something made the mayor, if the mayor herself was incapacitated or couldn't serve, or unfortunately, let's say she died in office like Harold Washington, the vice mayor becomes mayor until the city council either ratifies that or picks one more of their own. So it's a mechanism for succession. God forbid that would have to happen, but it has happened before. And then lastly, to answer your question about the casino, I believe, given my hospitality background, hotel, restaurant, and interest, I really have kind of an interest in the industry, so to speak, being that my educational background is both in restaurant and hotel management, especially from Cornell, which I'm very proud of, and Illinois also, University of Illinois, and undergrad, and Cornell and master's, all in hotel restaurant management. I just said, hey, I like this work, I like this industry. I might be able to provide more insight than maybe some of my other colleagues. And the mayor agreed and the council ratified. So there's an old adage that someone told me a long time ago, which maybe you've heard it before, but ask a busy person to get something done. don't ask somebody with idle time to get things done. So yes, I juggle a lot of things, but I'm a single guy. I don't have children. I don't, yes, I have my restaurant family, but I get up, I go to work. I love to work. Some people work to live. I live to work. So, and I'm still healthy and happy. So.
Since you've been on the city council for a long, long time, are there some changes in the operation of the city council that you would like to see? And what changes might be beneficial?
Well, beneficial is just in the eyes of the beholder, okay? Being on the council, there was a couple things that I thought could have been more efficient. I'm a business person, and that one of the reasons I got into city council is to have the business voice in the discussion of citywide issues, how important employers are, how important business is. And then, of course, the other reason was the lack of government response to the AIDS epidemic and LGBT equality. I have the honor of being the first openly gay alderman in the council, and now there are 5. So I don't know. I got off on a tangent, so bring me back into the question. I'm sorry.
Because of your experience in the there's changes.
So things that I
operation.
So to rephrase your question, you've been on the council for a number of years. What things would you like to see improve? What things that, what changes, especially with your voice of experience? I personally felt in some cases, there's probably too many alderpersons. And I would love to be in a larger area. I think, maybe reducing the size of the council has some benefits. I think I could do more, basically, and I am doing more on a chairman's role. So when we lost population, what we did was we lost, each ward became smaller. I thought, well, we had a 7% or 8% reduction in the population. Maybe we should float the number based on 8% fewer aldermen. So I wasn't afraid to look at that, but that structural change requires a state change in legislation, which we would have to convince our people down in Springfield. So that was one. And then the fact that there are so many committees, and I think it's, each mayor has talked about reducing the number of city council committees. We've only gotten more. Now, the casino, but selfishly, the casino is something that interfaces with 5 or so existing committees. And what we wanted to do was to streamline the decision-making process under one special committee. That will disband once a casino operator is selected. And so that part of it, I think there's a couple things that being on the council, I think we could be more efficient. So I'll leave it at that. You can continue to ask me questions.
You had mentioned that one of the main top concerns of the people in your ward is, of course, security, and of course, gun violence in Chicago is on many minds. So that the city is working to reduce gun violence, but which actions do you think have been effective or you expect may result in reduced violence? So
well, I think the biggest problem, and I'm not the first to articulate this, I think the biggest problem is just the prevalence of guns, and the availability. And, while Illinois has more restrictive, Wisconsin, Indiana. So this migration of guns to the city, it just, as you know, the more guns out, the more people are going to be victims, even of their own,
Right. That is the problem, but what are some of the solutions that
I'm getting to that point. I think it's a combination of federal, state, and county. We can't necessarily do it alone. some of the city, there was a city ordinance about not, that was lost in the court about people being able to carry a weapon on them. That was a city ordinance that was thrown out by the court. You know, we're fully funding a police department. So I think, you know, at this point, I think we've got to find the balance of professional policing and living under the consent decree and motivating people to want to be a police officer. So, you know, I think the morale right now is a real problem. Now, again, identifying problems and what are solutions is probably what you're getting at. Honestly, I think continuing to work on the consent decree to really do a better job of training and retaining police officers is something that we need to continue to invest in. I also think, and we've been doing this in Lakeview, is building stronger communities, not just online, but block clubs and community gardens and projects that get people to know each other on the block and to look out for each other. You know, this is an old-fashioned idea, but you know, when you talk to, when you go to CAPS meetings, you know, this idea of there's some CAPS meetings where they bring in offenders, and part of their process is to talk to community groups how easy it is to steal, or how easy it is I was able to carjack, you know, and it's part of their restitution, so to speak. And it's like the worst thing they like to see is nosy neighbors and a tight-knit community. And you know, it's interesting to hear it from their perspective.
More nosy neighbors.
Yes. Well, that is something we can do with each other. You know, it doesn't cost a lot of money, and I think you know, I've tried to be someone from the neighborhood for the neighborhood. You know, I'm very visible in the neighborhood. You know, I work closely with the police department. Sometimes I go on missions with the police department, unmarked cars, working, you know, just to kind of get a feel for what happens. Because relatively speaking, it's a safe neighborhood. The city, not the city, Lakeview. Yeah. However, today's perception is every neighborhood is not safe enough. Okay. And
so you're saying that perception does not really apply to your ward?
No, no, because we haven't had the serious homicides that other other parts of the city, but we've had crimes of opportunity. We have a higher degree of burglaries, robberies. We're not immune to the carjacking phenomena that's happening all over the city, but we are a neighborhood that is fairly affluent, and we're an entertainment district. So people might not be 100% sober, so to speak. And there have been a lot of crimes of opportunity, feeling that this neighborhood is a safe neighborhood. So I can walk out alone at all hours of the night. You know, this is a big city. And I think that people have to realize, whether you're fresh out of college, this is not Ann Arbor, Michigan. This is the city of Chicago. You know, and of course, we get a lot of young people in this neighborhood to live and also to visit, and they feel that it is a safe neighborhood relatively, but they let their guard down, you know. And we try to work with the bar and restaurant community to make sure that people that drink responsibly, number one, but that they're escorted, they're not on their own at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, because that's a recipe for, you know, crime, in my opinion. So, but I don't have this wave the magic wand about, you know, how to reduce violence in the city. But I think I really feel that our police department has got to do a better job too, you know, and then protect people's civil liberties too. So that's that balance they're at. I'm not a big fan of curfews. I'm not sure that that's going to be the answer either. But I know that there's a direction about better community involvement. You know, I grew up in Chicago, and officer friendly. Yeah, I don't know if that was an axiom for our generation. You know, it is a different day, but I really feel that trust in the police department needs to be restored.
League members have observed that the Chicago City Council committees and then the City Council itself regularly pass agenda items without letting the public know in advance what will be voted on, and even allowing the public to see the wording of the proposed bill. Now, sometimes the public finds out days after the vote, and when it's obviously public input is impossible. We understand that this is a result of the provision in Rule 41 that allows the mayor and the city departments what is called direct introduction of items to the committee. Now, direct introduction items do not go through the clerk's office, which means that no number is assigned to these items, and the text of the bills is not posted on Legistar. Would you support requiring that direct introduction items be assigned item numbers, and that they and their language should become available to the public 2 business days prior to the meeting in which a vote is expected?
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of direct introductions because of the notice requirement, but I also believe that our work is deliberative, and to make a decision upon even us as elected officials making a decision on the fly, so to speak, without possibly researching it. So yes, I'm all about preparation for the public, preparation for council. I don't like surprises, and I don't think unless it's super critical, that a direct introduction is appropriate.
So you would support requiring that direct introduction type items be assigned, item numbers and so on?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in theory, I don't know why it's that necessary.
Okay.
Now, the Rule 41 you were talking about is, and even more so, my zoning committee, oftentimes you'll have an item on the agenda and it's being deferred because of the sponsor, or because in my case, in the zoning, they're not ready. The community hasn't made a decision. So they defer the item. So on the zoning committee, we have a regular agenda and a deferred agenda. Now that deferred agenda, I think, is, even though it's been noticed up to the public, it might be lying in dormancy, and we recall it. And I believe it's maybe 24 hours notice on the deferred agenda, because so that's a kind of the 41 rule is oftentimes comes up when like an alderman, right now we have an issue where an alderman has proposed legislation that's been locked up in he introduced it, and it's been sitting in committee without action. So he or she would send notice saying, I want to hear this over the objection, so to speak, of the chairperson. So he puts a rule to say, look, I want to have this heard. And that's another maneuver, so to speak. And that might not be in the public domain, is what I'm saying, to answer your question.
All right. A very quick question.
Alona, excuse me, I think we have time for one last question.
One last question. Okay, we'll go to the last question then. Okay. What are several things that you would really like to get done, or at least to get started during your term, which ends in 2023?
Well, number one, I'd like to improve safety. Number two, would like to make sure that my public schools get more funding. We had COVID money, but I want to prioritize. I'm responsible for my schools, and we don't have a lot of TIFs, which is a way to finance improvements around the school, or labs or whatever. So I keep fighting for our schools, our public schools. But after 5 terms, I'm fairly actualized. I'm in a good place. I've been very fortunate to see the growth and the success of Lakeview. And I'm very proud of my work. And then I'm just quickly on this this last question about rank choice.
Yes.
It's being held. Some municipalities have been doing it. There's been a learning curve, I think, more recently in the last couple of years, because that the winner wasn't found out till many days later. I think it requires a League of Women voter that really knows and spends the time to research and to figure out in a priority where they would like to see their elected official. A lot of voters are not as educated as the voters that will be watching this video. And we need certainly a more educated electorate too, but I'm not adverse to trying it. We used to have a Democratic and a Republican in Chicago. It wasn't until 81 or 89, 90, where we had the 50% plus one top 2 candidates. Before, we had a Republican candidate for mayor and a Democratic. And that system changed probably for the better. And so am I adverse to trying something else? If it gets more turnout, if it gets more people interested and gets more people involved, it's a more sophisticated way. And
Okay.
I'm not adverse to it.
Honey, I thank you so much. We thank you so much for being with us today. The premiere of your interview will be tonight at 6 p.m. and then you'll be on.
I'll be a rock star, right? Yeah. No, I enjoy. I enjoy what I do. And I wish that for everybody. So.
Oh, that is the nice wish. Now, everyone who registered today for the program and is not a League member will receive an email with a link to this interview. And there will be also an invitation to join the League, because we are always open to civic-minded people who want to really work to strengthen democracy. Yeah. And so there will also be a sign up for notices of future programs. Now, next week, Thursday, May 26th at 6 p.m., we'll have Zooming with the Alderman with Alderman James Campbellman of the 46th Ward. And we hope that everybody will join us for all of the Zooming with the Alderman and go back to ones you have missed, because this is a good way to learn about Chicago, one ward at a time. And I thank you.
Thank you, everybody.